Welcome to the deep dive. Every day, the generative AI tools we use, the chatbots, the writing assistants, all those summarizing features, they just keep getting exponentially more useful.
They really do. It's incredible how quickly they're evolving.
And we're outsourcing so much difficult mental work almost without thinking. For productivity, that's amazing.
Absolutely. Huge gains there.
But what if all that convenience, handing off our thinking, comes with a hidden cost, a cognitive one? What if we're inadvertently making our own thinking a bit weaker?
That's the exact tension, isn't it, between the efficiency we gain and maybe the capability we lose. And that's what our sources today are really digging into.
Right.
Our mission here in this deep dive is to unpack the evidence. There's a growing body of it now, including some neurological findings about how heavy AI use might be impacting human memory, critical thinking, even our awareness of how we learn. We're looking at three really interconnected ideas: cognitive offloading, something called metacognitive laziness, and this supercharged version of the Google effect.
Okay, let's unpack that then. If you look across all the research, what's the core problem? The main warning? Is it just, forgetting stuff more easily, or is it bigger?
Oh, it's definitely bigger. The overarching concern is this cumulative effect. Some sources actually call it cognitive debt.
Cognitive debt, like financial debt.
Sort of, yeah. If you stop exercising a muscle, it weakens, right? Well, the idea is that constantly handing off intellectual effort leads to declines in how well we encode memories, less mental engagement overall, and a drop in critical thinking capacity.
And we're seeing this already.
We are. There was one MIT study looking at AI use for essay writing. It found a 32% drop in cognitive effort, and you could see it in brain connectivity scans too.
Wow, 32% less effort. That's significant when we're talking about core thinking skills.
It is. That level of disengagement is definitely concerning.
Okay, so let's jump into that first mechanism you mentioned, the one creating this debt, cognitive offloading.
Right. So cognitive offloading, simply put, is just delegating mental tasks.
Yeah.
That could be remembering a fact, analyzing a problem, even putting together a complex argument, delegating it to an external tool.
And this isn't entirely new, I guess, like using calculators or GPS.
Exactly. We've relied on tools like that for decades to offload memory and calculation. That part isn't new.
But the shift with AI feels different, profound maybe, because we're not just offloading storage or basic sums now. We're handing over things like evaluation, synthesis, even creative work.
That's the crucial difference. And initially, this looks great through the lens of cognitive theory, specifically cognitive load theory.
Okay.
The idea is when AI handles the routine stuff, checking grammar, formatting, drafting a simple email, it cuts down the extraneous cognitive load, the mental clutter.
So the AI handles the busy work, and that frees up my brain power for the deep thinking, the important stuff.
That's the optimistic view, precisely. And our sources show this works sometimes, like preservist teachers using AI for routine academic tasks. It lets them focus more mental energy on actual teaching strategies, student interaction, things that matter more.
Sounds ideal, that kind of partnership. But you mentioned the negative side, a sharp one. Where does it go wrong when offloading starts hitting essential thinking?
Yeah, the costs become really apparent, especially with memory and critical reasoning. Let's go back to that 32% drop in effort during essay writing.
Sure.
The really concerning finding from that same line of research was an 83% failure rate.
83%. Failure at what?
Failure in participants remembering passages they had just written with AI help. They'd outsourced the mental work of actually encoding the information, so the memory, it just wasn't formed.
An 83% failure rate on recall for something you just produced.
Yeah.
That's, wow. That feels like a really strong sign of impaired learning. Like the act of creating with AI is somehow passive for the person.
It seems to be, yes. Highly passive. And beyond just memory, there's the hit to analytical skills. A big 2025 study found a strong negative link, a correlation between how often people used AI tools and their critical thinking scores.
Strong a link.
Measured at RWIS 0.49. Which statistically is pretty significant.
Right.
It directly suggests that the more you habitually delegate complex thinking to AI, the weaker your own independent analytical skills might become. The offloading itself seems to mediate that decline in reasoning.
And if offloading becomes a habit, we need to think about the real-world impact, right? Especially in jobs where critical thinking is non-negotiable. What happens when whole teams rely on automated decision tools?
Well, the risk of what you might call workforce atrophy. It's significant in fields like healthcare, engineering, finance. Sure, automated systems boost efficiency, they speed up diagnoses, analyze market risk, draft legal summaries,
Makes sense.
but they can also create a situation where the human worker is less equipped to solve problems when something unexpected happens, something novel.
So if the system glitches, or worse, it quietly makes a mistake, which apparently happens sometimes in healthcare AI summaries, right? Missing context.
It's a known issue, yes.
Then the human professional might not have the practice skill to even spot the error, let alone fix it.
Precisely. They become reliant on the system just being right by default. The sources really highlight this, that capacity for deep, independent, reflective thinking gets weaker because there's this constant expectation that the AI will handle the details, do the calculation, provide the answer. It fosters a kind of dangerous passivity.
That idea of passive acceptance, trusting the output without really checking the process, that seems like a good bridge to the next layer of risk you mentioned. It goes beyond just delegating a task. What happens when we delegate the learning process itself?
Exactly. That's where we get into metacognitive laziness. This isn't just offloading a task, it's offloading metacognition.
Metacognition. Remind us.
Those higher order skills that make for effective learning. Things like planning how you'll approach a problem, monitoring your own understanding as you go, and critically evaluating the quality of your work, your knowledge.
So you're not just getting the AI to write the essay, you're letting it guide how you learn and revise the whole thing.
We're letting it manage your thinking about your thinking.
Ah, okay. This sounds very much like the results from that big 2024 study. I think it was in the British Journal of Educational Technology with university students.
That's the one. A pivotal study. It documented what some now call the performance paradox.
Performance paradox. How so?
Well, on one side, you have the clear short-term win. The group using ChatGPT showed the biggest improvement in their essay grades. Better than the control group, even better than students who got feedback from human experts. Their performance looked great.
Okay, better grades. Sounds good, but paradox implies a downside.
Correct. That's the long-term loss. Despite the better grades, the AI-assisted group showed basically no significant gains in knowledge transfer. Meaning they struggled to apply the concepts they wrote about to new, different situations. Their deeper understanding hadn't really improved. It was stagnant. They got the grade without the cognitive struggle.
So what were they actually doing differently? How did their behavior change when using the AI?
They were essentially bypassing the cognitive heavy lifting, the struggle, the uncertainty. That's actually where insight and skill development often happen.
Yeah.
Instead of actively engaging in those metacognitive steps, planning their argument, reviewing their draft critically to find weaknesses, they just kept looping back to the AI, asking for immediate fixes, suggestions, feedback. The sources describe it as replacing active learning with just passively consuming AI content and edits. If you don't practice reasoning adaptively, you don't develop it.
And if you're not practicing it, but your output looks great thanks to the AI, you walk straight into that psychological trap, don't you? The illusion of competence.
Absolutely. And that might be the most insidious risk here. Users mistake how easily they get fluent, articulate answers from the AI for genuine, deep understanding. It feels effortless, so they feel competent.
Right.
Our sources had a great example, a study with high school students using ChatGPT for math review. They actually performed worse on the exams later compared to kids who didn't use AI.
Worse. Really?
Yes, but here's the kicker. The AI assistant students firmly believed they had done better. Their confidence was high, but it masked the fact that their learning had stalled.
Wow. That combination, high confidence, low actual understanding, feels like it could scale up into a bigger system-wide problem. Which brings us to what you call the amplified Google effect.
Exactly. If you remember the original Google effect or digital amnesia, identified back around 2011.
Yeah, that was about us stop remembering facts because we knew we could just look them up. Or we remembered where the info was, not the info itself.
Precisely. A shift to what's called transactive memory. Remembering where to find it, the search engine, the cloud file.
So how does generative AI amplify that?
It amps it up significantly because it changes the fundamental interaction. Search engines gave you links. AI gives you synthesized answers. Often, just one answer.
Ah, I see. Less need to click through, compare sources, piece things together myself.
Exactly. Traditional search still required some friction. You had to click, read, analyze, synthesize. AI often delivers the final polished product instantly. It eliminates the need to practice that critical analysis, that source verification. The cognitive friction drops near zero.
And that's a vulnerability, because the answer looks so smooth and confident.
It is, because that fluent zero-friction output is often accepted without much thought. even if it contains subtle errors or biases or is just plain wrong sometimes.
In this behavior, it's being actively encouraged by the big players, isn't it? Like Google's AI Overviews feature. The sources called it a walled garden.
That's a very apt metaphor. That feature became widespread mid-2025 or so. These instant AI-generated summaries sit right at the top of the search results. They're designed to keep you right there inside Google's world.
So you don't need to click away.
Why would you, if the answer seems complete right there? And the behavioral data backs this up. Users now apparently make an average of 10 clicks within Google refining searches, looking at related AI bits before they actually click out to an external website.
10 internal clicks first.
Yeah.
Wow. That really does wall off independent websites. Thinking about platforms like Wikipedia, Quora, academic blogs, they rely on search traffic, right?
Right.
For eyeballs, for contributions.
They absolutely do. If users get their answers before leaving Google, it directly threatens the engagement and, frankly, the sustainability of large parts of the open, independent web.
And connecting this information trend to the bigger picture. You mentioned systemic economic risks, something about autonomous AI agents.
Yes, researchers, including some at Google DeepMind, are flagging this. We're moving beyond AI doing single tasks to AI agents making independent economic decisions.
Like what kind of decisions?
Things like negotiating complex contracts, booking logistics, optimizing supply chains, potentially operating quite autonomously.
Okay, and the risk is?
The risk is, if these agents are running on complex, maybe opaque algorithms, optimizing only for their own narrow goals. And if human oversight is weakened because of the cognitive debt issues we've been discussing, that introduces huge systemic risks to markets.
Risks like
Rapid monopolies forming based on algorithmic advantages we don't understand, opaque bargaining processes, or even system failures because accountability and transparency are lacking. Human judgment is sidelined.
Yeah, that's a sobering thought. The ultimate consequence of offloading complexity without ensuring humans stay firmly in the loop and capable.
Exactly.
Okay, we've painted a pretty concerning picture of cognitive debt and systemic risks. Let's talk mitigation. Is there any good news? Are some people maybe better protected against these effects?
Fortunately, yes, it seems so. The research suggests that existing cognitive strengths act as a kind of buffer.
How so?
Well, age and education levels seem to significantly moderate the negative impacts. Younger people tend to show higher reliance on AI and subsequently lower critical thinking scores with heavy use. Conversely, older adults, and especially those with higher educational attainment, tend to maintain stronger analytical skills, even when they use AI frequently.
That makes sense. It suggests that a solid formal education gives you the underlying framework, the skills to evaluate information critically, no matter what tool you're using.
It seems to equip them to interrogate the output rather than just passively accept it, which leads to the practical question, what does this mean for you, the learner, today? How do we use these powerful tools smartly without racking up that cognitive debt?
I like the analogy from the sources here. They were pretty clear. View AI as a sparring partner or maybe a wingman for your thinking,
Right.
not a substitute that takes over entirely, or a parachute you only pull when things get difficult.
Exactly. The practical strategies really center on deliberate, intentional engagement. You have to actively process the output.
So what does that look like?
It means things like consciously interrogating AI outputs, check their accuracy, question their logic, and then, crucially, rewrite or rephrase the content in your own words. That ensures genuine understanding, something you can actually explain.
The old teach it back method.
Pretty much. Auditing your own ability to explain the conclusions without the AI is key. If you can't explain it clearly yourself, you haven't really learned it.
One of the most interesting strategies mentioned was something called reliance drills. Can you explain those? They sound intense.
Yeah, they're quite clever. They're basically structured exercises designed specifically to combat automation bias, that tendency to just trust the machine.
How do they work?
In these drills, subtle but deliberate mistakes are inserted into AI-generated outputs, often errors specific to the context, like in medicine or cybersecurity.
Okay.
The whole point is to test the human user. Do they just accept the flawed advice uncritically, or do they actually evaluate it, spot the error, and correct it before acting? For instance, an AI might generate a firewall configuration, but with one slightly wrong command.
And the user has to catch it.
Exactly. To pass the drill, they must spot and fix that mistake. It forces the kind of critical engagement that routine offloading lets us skip.
That sounds like a really practical way to fight that passive acceptance urge. Okay, and finally, to balance the risks, there's a major positive example cited, right? The AlphaFold Effect.
Yes, AlphaFold. That's DeepMind's model for predicting protein structures. It's a fantastic example of AI as a pure enhancer.
How so?
Well, it essentially solved a massive 50-year-old challenge in biology, predicting how proteins fold, which determines their function. This was incredibly complex.
And AI cracked it.
AlphaFold cracked it with remarkable accuracy. But it didn't replace biologists. It augmented them. By automating this super complex task, it dramatically sped up drug discovery, vaccine development, enzyme design. It freed up human scientists to focus their brain power on the next big scientific questions.
So AI handled the bottleneck, allowing humans to do more advanced work.
Precisely. That's the model of AI as an amplifier of human intellect, not a replacement for fundamental skills.
Okay, so wrapping this up, the big takeaway seems to be that over-relying on AI, driven by convenience and our bias towards automation, can lead to this cognitive debt. It shows up as weaker critical thinking, poorer memory, maybe even an inflated sense of our own abilities.
That's the core message, yes. We have to be mindful, intentional about how we engage with these tools.
Which brings us to our final provocative thought for you, the listener. This one comes from Demis Hassabis, the CEO of Google DeepMind. He specifically warned that AI development could easily repeat the toxic patterns we saw with early social media.
Right, things like optimizing for addiction or promoting polarizing content.
Exactly. If the systems are designed only around engagement, convenience, short-term efficiency, those negative consequences can emerge. So the question Hassabis raises, and something for you to mull over, is this. If convenience is such a powerful driver of AI adoption, how do we, both the designers and us as users, ensure these systems and our habits around them actually support long-term intellectual resilience? How do we aim for robust thinking, not just short-term ease?